Hello and what is up, YouTube? My name is G3Iron, and today we are taking a look at the much anticipated, long awaited Earthquake build that I finally got to maps and finally had enough currency to play around with during Path of Exile Legion League. And so, sure enough, here's some footage. Those of you who are always complaining for gameplay footage, show us gameplay footage, Iron. Ta-da! Gameplay footage. Look, here's a level 73-ish character that is farming Tier 2 glaciers. And I'm pretty sure at some point on this video I'm going to die because my character is absolutely paper thin and is not optimized whatsoever. But nonetheless, today we are going to be taking a look at an Earthquake character. Many of you have guessed the ascendancy that we went with. We're going to take a look at both a POB for this particular build as well as this build's original creator and giving him props and credit for coming up with this concept and following his concept pretty much to the T, down to the items, down to the pathing, and down to the various gameplay mechanics that are there, with only one or two tweaks involved. Now, for those of you that are new, of course, to the channel, you can, of course, jump ahead or jump backwards to any of our particular discussion topics. There are timestamps placed directly above my completely bald and sunburnt forehead there for your convenience, and those are hot linked down below in the video description for your convenience. If at any point in time you've got comments or feedback or your own thoughts or tweaks or suggestions for an Earthquake build, you can of course leave us a comment down below. So, Earthquake. Earthquake is an iconic skill in Path of Exile, one that I have loved to play, dating all the way back to when I first transitioned from playing pretty much Necromancers and Summoners only in hardcore Path of Exile to playing other characters that could do other skills other than being Summoners. And Earthquake was one of the very first skills that I used and very first characters that I built as a melee character. I, of course, built it as a thick jug back in the day, is what I built my first Earthquake character on and followed around. And when I heard that there was going to be a melee rework, of course, I was excited for all of the different possibilities that could be for Earthquake. And so I began researching and looking around what sort of Earthquake changes and what sort of ascendancies nowadays would be best for an Earthquake character. And it didn't take me very long before I came to the conclusion that none of the traditional ascendancies that would go on Earthquake would work for me. That doesn't mean that it won't work in general. It doesn't mean that if you've chosen or would like to build an Earthquake Juggernaut, an Earthquake Slayer, an Earthquake Gladiator, an Earthquake Champion, it doesn't mean that those are bad choices. It just means that I've already done various variations of those builds and I wanted to try something different. So as I was looking around and perusing the forums and checking out different threads and trying to come up with a POB of my own, I stumbled across this gem of a build. So at this point, I will introduce Wadafruck, who has built for us a Pathfinder Vaal EQ build. So for those of you wondering what ascendancy we go, we play Pathfinder, which probably not what you were expecting. I mean, feel free to leave me a comment down below if you genuinely can say, yeah, Iron, I totally expected you to go to Pathfinder Earthquake. I didn't expect to go it until I came across this particular build and started tweaking and playing around. And I actually messaged Wadafruck, who was very kind enough to message me back and give me some updates and some thoughts on what this particular build would look like in 3.7 Legion League. So here's the tagline for Wadafruck's build. Speak softly and carry a big stick. You will go far. A quote from Theodore Roosevelt. The big stick diplomacy, shaking it up with Vaal Earthquake. Okay, so the build concept is as follows according to Wadafruck. Vaal Earthquake and Earthquake scale extremely well by reducing their duration. By combining reduced duration with Vaal modifiers, we enable Vaal Earthquake to have 100% uptime, letting us run through just about everything. While Vaal Earthquake can also be done by increasing the duration heavily, it loses out on the aftershock damage, which is an incredible 400% more modifier. By reducing the duration, we can cause overlapping aftershocks, destroying even some of the more stout enemies in the game by simply running by them. We convert our damage into cold damage in order to freeze enemies as we first run by, giving us a bit more safety and locking them in to the aftershocks. Because we also scale area of effect to increase clear speed, we run Herald of Ice, which extends our reach a bit further and complements our damage very well with Frost Explosions. I cannot tell you how satisfying it was to run around on glacial maps, freezing things, and simply as you run, stuff dies, right? Stuff chains, stuff explodes, stuff gets killed off of procs from Herald of Ice. Really, really cool build concept, and I was really, really excited to get to play this version of Earthquake. Now, for those of you that already might be saying, okay, well, this is different. This is very unique in a lot of ways right away from the get-go. You're right. This isn't the traditional leap slam, jump into a plaque, slam the ground, Earthquake, jump away, leap slam away, and watch everything explode like a Michael Bay Transformers film in the background as you jump away. It's not that. It's quite different, but it still feels great. It feels great in a different way. I feel like Leap Slam, in and of itself, leap slamming from pack to pack to pack, is a completely different gameplay feel than running from pack to pack. That being said, because we primarily rely on running and on move speed, you can tweak your tree however you'd like to tweak it to maximize your move speed, which, as we all know, farming various maps for legions, move speed, and being able to get around a map quickly and get around a legion pack, a monolith encounter quickly, is paramount for running monoliths per hour or legions per hour, right? That is really one particular metric that is very prevalent right now in Path of Exile Legion League. And so it was great to not be restricted by saying, oh, what's the cap on my attack speed for leap slam, or is my attack speed and scaling my attack speed for leap slam going to mess with my scaled attack speed for my earthquake? I didn't have to worry about any of that sort of nonsense because I wasn't going to rely on a movement ability in any way, shape, or form. I was simply going to rely on boosting my ability to move quickly with my move speed flasks, as well as from my boots and whatever other move speed I could get on the tree. So build pros according to Wadafruck. It's unbelievably fast without relying on movement skills. It's got high damage, fast AoE clearing, moderately priced for the clear speed. I can speak to that. It is moderately priced. This is not a starter guide. This is not a starter build. We are over a month into Path of Exile Legion League. If you don't have enough currency to build this build right now, I will tell you, you can go farm that. We've got different ways that will show you how to do that right here on this channel, as well as on several other channels on how to farm currency to be able to play a build like this. This isn't the most expensive build in the game. You don't need a headhunter for this. You don't need any mirror tier gear. But there are a couple of items that are relatively expensive. And then, of course, it scales incredibly well with a headhunter, which, as Wadafruck points out, what doesn't scale well with a headhunter right now. And the build cons are that it's slightly low on life. It only has about 6 to 7k life on a full build. It cannot do Ellie Reflect because, of course, when you go into an Ellie Reflect map and you slam the ground with 50% of your physical converted to ice, or more than 50% converted to ice, you just freeze yourself and die. It's got relatively weak single target when the Vaal runs out, which means that it's poor for bossing if your boss that you are fighting is genuinely in their own zone unto themselves. That is very, very true. If you are fighting a boss that is in any way connected to mob spawns, or that is in an open area where there's already maybe a monolith encounter, or where there are just simply other monsters for you to hit, generally speaking, it takes one hit with your earthquake to get Vaal Earthquake going for the entire rest of the map. That's all it takes. One slam from your earthquake and you are set for the rest of the map. If you were watching the video and some of the gameplay footage from earlier, which I'll show off some more here in a minute, I'm also using a weapon swap setup to give myself Rampage, which is really, really nice. So that way I've got increased move speed, increased attack speed, increased cast speed, all of the bonuses essentially of having Rampage up, because of course the damage and the whole build's clear speed scales with move speed as you run around the map. So I wanted to jam Rampage in there, and I did that via a weapon swap. Other build cons are that it's extremely susceptible to player error, and using a flask incorrectly will and can and will stall your build. That is absolutely true. Whenever you are playing a Pathfinder character, the Pathfinder as an ascendancy itself is, of course, incredibly strong and built and centered in many ways around flask usage. So if you have undisciplined flask usage, then playing a Pathfinder is going to punish you for that. Lastly, it is tough to cap resists. I can just say on my character, I decided to hell with it. I'm not gonna worry about capping my resists. Occasionally, I would die from a couple things if I was way under leveled from a zone while I was leveling or even going through maps. But the vast majority of stuff, again, once you get your Vaal earthquake going, gets frozen. And if there's anything that's like you need to worry about that's off screen, well, you're moving so quickly. A lot of the times you can simply dodge projectiles that are coming from you off screen. A lot of the stuff from Legion that people were worried about early on during Legion League, whether that was the Red Wave of Death or the projectile archer shooting you from off screen, you're simply running around and moving too fast for any of that stuff to really, really worry about you. And of course, you can scale this build with dodge and evasion as well. So if anything does hit you, hopefully it is a small projectile that does a little bit of damage instead of a massive, massive hit that does a bunch of damage. Okay, so that is Wadafruck's basic build, and of course, all of this information will be included down below in the video description. So here's what his path of building looks like going over the tree. You're going to start out, I generally go for life nodes first, so you come down here all the way to thick skin, and then you start grabbing some of the life nodes that are over up near, where is it? Over here by Revenge of the Hunted. So you're going to work your way around towards Acrobatics and then come up and get Revenge of the Hunted, so that way you've got HP. You work your way up to Blood Drinker, more HP. You come over to Cold Hearted Calculation, and at this point, as you're leveling, you've really got a lot of options. You can come down and fill out your cold resistance and your cold penetration and cold damage. You can fill out some of your cold conversion. You can come fill out some more of your elemental damage down here with Primeval Force. You can start to scale up some of your critical strike multiplier if you want to come over here to Heat Seeker. If you want to come and you need some more accuracy, you feel like you're not hitting enough, you can grab depth perception. So there's just a lot of options that you can do. I pretty much always prioritize life stuff first on builds because it's super duper annoying if you die while you are leveling through the campaign, because then you've got to rerun the zone. So I generally prioritize on my defenses first if there are defenses to prioritize in the build. But other than that, that's pretty much what we're looking at for prioritization on the tree. The tree then wraps up by grabbing a whole bunch of Flask Effect and Flask Duration, along with some more life up here by Cruel Preparation. And then there's some more things that you can do in here. You can fill out some more life over here by Melding. There's a couple of different jewel sockets that you can go grab and fill out. But it's a pretty simple and straightforward tree. It's like, hey, go grab some cold conversion, go grab some life, and go grab some crit multi. Sound good? Okay, that's your tree. In terms of the ascendancies, your ascendancy is going to be over here, which is called Veteran, not the Veteran Bowyer, that's the last one you get. You get Nature's Adrenaline, which increases your move speed during any flask effect, which we're a Pathfinder, we're always smashing our flasks. You grab Nature's Boon, and then you come over and you grab Master Alchemist. That's pretty much your ascendancy order in terms of your first three ascendancies. Honestly, you don't even have to do Uber on this. Yes, it's nice to have the damage penetrates resistances, especially the deeper and higher up you go into maps, but certainly in white and yellow maps, you don't even need this. You can just run through stuff and stuff gets frozen as you're running by with your Herald of Ice and with all your damage getting converted into cold damage. In terms of the itemization and the setup for this particular character, it all surrounds this particular type of staff. This is not a unique staff. It is a rare staff that you can craft with the Vaal modifier. Blood, I believe it's called Bloodstained Fossil is what you can craft it on. Those are usually a couple of X. I believe they're usually running like 5 to 6X right now. I could be wrong on that. That's, again, all of that is circumstantial based on the time of the league when you are crafting it. That being said, this particular staff is a build enabler for this particular build because it has the roll 40% reduced soul cost of Vaal skills, which is great. It's the thing that enables you to simply start a map, drop one earthquake, and then boom, combine this particular style of staff with your Soul Catcher Quartz Flask, and now your Vaal skills have got massive reduced soul cost during their effect. The Vaal skill deals a ton of additional damage during the effect, and then Vaal skills used during the effect have an increased reduction of soul gain prevention duration, which is great. Essentially, you can stack multiple charges of Vaal EQ, so that way whenever it runs out, you can simply slam it down again and continue running past packs, watching them explode, and picking up whatever loot they drop. Other things that are really nice about this particular build in general as uniques are this, the Tactician. the studded belt. This particular belt is needed, I found, in particular because it gives you a bunch of elemental resistances as well as, of course, physical global damage, which is really, really nice, and then increased critical strike chance. So it gives you a bunch of the stuff you need. It gives you health in terms of strength and intelligence, just in terms of flat requirements that you're going to need for your various jewels that you are leveling. It gives you physical damage, it gives you flask charges, it gives you crit, it gives you resistances, which are going to be tough to fill out elsewhere. Yes, this does use a Comb's Heart for a massive chunk of HP. You can see on this particular tree with this particular configuration, the life total that Wadafruck gets to is 5835. And he says min-max, this thing only gets up to about 6 to 7k when you min-max it, when you swap out all the jewels for various increases of life. It's pretty understandable when you look at the tree why this particular build doesn't get much higher than that, right? You're not grabbing all of the massive life nodes over by the Scion wheel. You're not necessarily going out of your way to grab a bunch of extra 10% or 8% or even 6% maximum life nodes. This is relatively low on the tree for your increased life on the tree. So for those of you hardcore boys out there, those of you who like to play hardcore like me every other league, this build is a scary, scary build for hardcore. Just telling you that straight up. I would probably play, if in hardcore, I would rely on probably a Juggernaut for my Earthquake build. But I decided, hey, this is a league where I'm playing softcore, so this is the league where I can mess around with a Pathfinder Earthquake build, so that's what I'm going to do. Lastly, besides for Comb's Heart, there is the Hrimburn Goat Hide Gloves, which, of course, this gives you 50% of physical damage converted to cold, which is really, really nice in terms of the amount of conversion that you're going to get in order to freeze stuff that's around you. Use Hiri's Ire, which gives you the level 22 precision skill and adds a bunch of physical and cold damage to attacks, along with global crit strike multi. And then Starconia's Head, which gives you a good amount of HP, as well as increased attack speed, as well as critical strike chance. So all of the things that you could possibly want on this build, cold damage, crit strike, and life, are provided to you by these various uniques, as well as this unique, it's not unique, it's rare, but this unique style of crafted staff. Which, of course, we're in a meta that says, hey, staffs are terrible, right? So if you want to play this build, play it now while staffs aren't meta, and it's relatively cheap to do this, to build this style of build. I believe 6-linked, 6-socketed staffs like this are going for like 5 or 6x. So again, if you don't have the currency for that, put your head down for a couple of days, go farm up some glaciers, go watch some Bank of Exile videos that we've got here on the channel to learn some ways to make a couple extra chaos and a couple extra exalted over the next couple of days, and then go try it out, because it is a really, really fun build. And again, in these videos that I'm showing off here of the gameplay, I'm not even like min-maxed out. I'm not using the vast majority of the upgrades that are possible in terms of jewels and in terms of flasks. I'm not using a Lion's Roar, which would be really, really helpful. But I'm not using a lot of those things. In terms of the jewels on the build that I was running like no jewels whatsoever, and still just blowing up anything that I wanted to encounter in terms of white maps and yellow maps as a level 70 character without even capping my resistances. So there's a lot of room for improvement in this particular iteration that I was playing, and it was still very, very enjoyable. Wadafruck has made a couple of changes and has made some updates to the build. He's even got some high tier maps that he shows off crushing, which are much higher than the stuff that I run, because he's min-maxed it a lot better. But that's just to say, if you want to min-max the build, the opportunity is for you there. Lastly, I will say this. One of the cons of this particular build is, of course, the required just simply precision and mechanics that are used by using a weapon swap in order to activate Rampage. Sometimes I would mess that up. This is a great example of it right here in this particular piece of gameplay footage, where I just didn't get my Rampage going early. My weapon swap wasn't really triggering for me all that well, and that threw me off my game completely in terms of mechanically. It really slowed me down. But there's lots of ways where you can scale this build up with your own mechanical precision. I am by far one of the worst mechanical Path of Exile players I have ever witnessed or watched or seen play. Me, myself, I've got a lot of mechanical improvements that I could use. I'm just an old guy and I make too many mistakes when it comes to mechanics. That being said, This is the type of build that, depending on how you want to challenge yourself and how you want to scale and learn the build yourself, you can really see this build improve with your own management of flasks, with your own choices and twists and variations, whether or not you want to branch off for more life, if you want to branch off for more crit, if you want to aim for more just flat physical or flat cold damage. Those are all options and tweaks that you can do to this particular build. All right, that's going to do it for our Vaal Earthquake build guide and overview. I really enjoyed playing this particular build this league. I've just really enjoyed Earthquake throughout the whole time and history of Path of Exile, and I was really excited because I've never played a Pathfinder Earthquake build. I don't think prior to this I've ever played a melee Pathfinder build. I think pretty much for me it was Poet's Pen Pathfinder back when Xerfes and Indigan were popular. I think that was Delve League. And then prior to that, it's pretty much all been like Deadeyes and Pathfinders for Magic Find Bow characters. So it was really, really fun to play a Vaal skill that was melee, but still kind of ranged because you're just running around and watching everything explode after you get that Vaal charge duration for your Vaal skill up. Once you get souls stored up for your Vaal Earthquake, it feels really, really great. It was really, really fun to play around with, and hopefully it's something that I'll be able to revisit in the future and scale it up and min-max the hell out of it, because I had a great time playing Vaal Earthquake Pathfinder. Hopefully it's something that you'll find time to play or enjoy for yourself. And if you've got suggestions or ideas for your own builds or builds that you'd like to see featured here on the channel, you can feel free to leave us a comment down below. And I hope today is the day a Mirror of Calandra drops for you while you are farming with your Vaal Earthquake Pathfinder. Thanks for watching that video. If you'd like more information on any of our discussion points today, you can see them down below in the video description. If you'd also like to join our Discord or support our Patreon, you can do so with the links down below. Thanks again, and big shout out to all of our Patreon supporters.